Well, guys, today is Father's Day. So I thought I would tell a story of my dad. So I have a really cool story of my dad, and it actually leads to what is my favorite game on the Super Nintendo. Everybody that watches my channel knows it's Super Punch Out. Super Punch Out is my favorite Super Nintendo game, and that is because of my dad. So on the weekends, every other weekend, I believe, we used to go over to my dad's house. My dad had the Super Nintendo. We would go over there. We'd hang out. It was so much fun playing Super Nintendo with my dad because my dad played games too. My dad had games like Donkey Kong Country, 1 and 2, I believe. He had Foreman for Real, Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. That's also a game that I definitely played at his house. That led to me liking that game so much. I was always intrigued by the graphics. But the main game we would play is Super Punch Out. And one thing that made it so much fun to play that with him was, at the time, he had another girlfriend, and she had a kid. And that kid would play with us too. His name was David. David would play with us too. And it was so much fun to sit there and play with David and my brother and me and my dad. We would all play this game, and we would just try to beat each other's times, and we just have so much fun laughing at the people. To this day, I can still see my dad somewhere at a store, or I could go over to his house, and if I go, "Hey," like Gabby J, "Hey," if I do that, my dad would know that I'm somewhere looking at him, and he would probably start laughing immediately. My dad, we always do that Gabby J thing to this day. We'd always laugh at Gabby J. Loved him to death. So, one cool thing about that game, to me, that also shines was I was the only one out of all of them that beat it. And I remember my dad and I think my brother also, they were stuck at Hoy Cuerlo, which I believe is probably was the stopping point for a lot of people. Hoy Cuerlo is the guy in the special circuit, second opponent. You got him, and then you got Rick and Nick Bruiser, and you're done with the game. So very close. They all did very well and got very, very close to being done with the game. But my dad used to see Hoy Cuerlo in just that stick, and they would just get bounced around and beat up. And believe me, I did a million times too. Hoy Cuerlo beat the crap out of me so many times. But I remember when my dad seen that I beat that, he was like, "You beat the whole game? Oh my God." And he was just, blown away by it. And he's like, "Holy cow." And they never went back to it. And I think the reason being was my dad had a falling out with that woman. And it kind of, my dad didn't get his Super Nintendo stuff, and he kind of lost track of that cartridge. And we just kind of never, we moved on to PlayStation and everything past that, and my dad got a new place and all this stuff. And we started playing PlayStation and all that good stuff. But my dad, we would just play the heck out of Super Punch Out, man. That was just the game. We loved it so much. And I wish I could go back to those days and just see what it was like. Because you wonder if you make a bigger deal out of it when you're a kid than it really was. So me remembering it, I wonder if it wasn't like as big of a deal. But I don't know. To me it was. And that's why that game will forever be like my favorite game on the Super Nintendo. And my dad was just a big contributor to that. It was so much fun playing with him. I used to sit there and watch him play, and I still remember. And it was just really cool having a dad that was like into that and playing it. And my dad's just a big contributor to why I like retro games. And I mean, it's a flashback to my childhood, and and all this stuff is kind of how he is too. My dad collects comic books, and he has more comic books than a comic book store. And I mean, it's crazy. My dad just has a ridiculous amount of comic books. It's dumb at this point. And so, I think that's kind of why I collect games. I think that I definitely don't have as many of him as him, but I remember those times, and I think that's why he collects comics too. I think he likes those times when he was a kid and he used to read them and stuff like that. But yeah, man, Super Punch Out. Jeez, though I still remember my brother was the fastest at beating Piston Hurricane, which is the third opponent. So fast. I swear it was like 7 seconds. It was something ridiculous like that. And I wonder how far my brother could get nowadays. I would love for my dad to sit down and play some Super Punch Out. That'd be a really awesome treat to get him over here and get him to do that. That'd be really awesome. Whether that'll ever happen or not, we don't know. But yeah, I wanted to dedicate this one to Dad because he is a big reason why I love the retro gaming and I'm into it, and it was so much fun to always go and play Super Nintendo at his house. We always had Sega Genesis at our house, and the Super Nintendo was over at his house. So we would just play it over there, and I still remember my dad, we'd always laugh. And it's so funny because people laugh at this nowadays too. But we would turn on Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, and when the guy gets struck out and he goes, "Oh, come on!" People still say that, and they laugh at that. As I was playing through my Ken Griffey Jr. season, everybody was quoting that, and me and my dad would laugh at that too. It's so funny how everybody kind of does the same thing with the games. But yeah, man, Super Punch Out will always hold a really, really special place in my heart because it's always a staple of my dad. I always think of my dad when I see it. So no Super Nintendo game will ever take the spot of Super Punch Out. I don't care what I play. It's just something special about that game. And you know something that's awesome about Super Punch Out is just when you get that meter up and you're just giving guys these huge hooks, man. It just feels so good to do that. And I think that's why my dad liked it too. And the graphics were so gorgeous back then. I still remember my dad really liked the graphics. And he always liked Bald Bull. My dad would always like Bald Bull. I don't know why, if it's just because he was a goofy character, or maybe it's just because my dad could beat the heck out of him. I'm not sure. But I'd love to see how far my dad could get if he sat down there for 2 to 3 hours. How far he could get on Super Punch Out nowadays. Maybe we'll have to try to get a playthrough of Super Punch Out with my dad on here. That'd be a really awesome thing to see. I bet my dad wouldn't even get out of the first circuit nowadays. Getting all pissed off and everything. But yeah, Dad, this one's to you, man. Happy Father's Day. And thanks for making me the person I am, being so into these games. It's so much fun, and it's just it's a great image of how great my childhood was. My childhood was amazing, so awesome, and 90s was awesome. Video games were awesome. Nintendo was awesome, and my dad was awesome.